What if I told you the man leading America's most powerful law enforcement agency couldn't answer the simplest question, who was on Jeffrey Epstein's client list, not wouldn't, couldn't? The moment that question hit the hearing room, you could feel the air shift. Cameras zoomed in, lawmakers leaned forward, and the public watching at home could sense something bigger was unfolding. Because this wasn't just about one list, it was about power, secrecy, and how far institutions will go to protect the people at the very top. During a tense exchange, Representative Ted Lieu pressed the FBI director on a question millions have been asking for years: who exactly was connected to Jeffrey Epstein?
Numerous interviews of Jeffrey Epstein. I'm going to play for you a video clip of what Michael Wolff said Epstein told him was in the safe and what he showed the author was in this safe. So let's please play that clip now.
Elected. And I was sitting talking to Epstein, and he said, "Wait a minute, I got to show you something." And then he went into his safe, and he came out with photographs. They were Polaroids, I think, and he kind of spread them out like playing cards, and it was Trump. I mean, I think there were a dozen of them, and it was Trump with girls of an uncertain age at Epstein's Palm Beach house, where all of the things that he would ultimately be accused of took place. And I remember very vividly 3 of them. There are 2 in which Trump is, the girls, topless girls, are sitting on Trump's lap. And then a 3rd in which he has a stain on the front of his pants, and the girls are kind of pointing at it, sort of bent over, laughing.
So Director Patel, I'm going to ask you a very broad and general question. As you know, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were friends. There are, of course, photos showing Donald Trump together with Epstein, correct?
I don't have the entirety of the photographs, but I think they've been photographed in public together.
All right. Are there any photos showing Donald Trump with girls of an uncertain age?
No.
How do you know that?
Because that information would have been brought to light by multiple administrations and FBI investigators over the course of the last 20 years.
Well, you know what? That's just not true, because no one knew about the creepy birthday message that Donald Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein until the Wall Street Journal disclosed it, and then all of a sudden, the Epstein estate provides it to Congress.
Well,
so certainly, you weren't there at the search. You don't know what Epstein may or may not have done with those photographs even prior to the search. Maybe someone has it. Maybe the Epstein estate has it.
You raise a great point.
So I'm going to ask you, have you asked to talk to Michael Wolff?
You raise a great point. I haven't personally asked to talk to Michael Wolff.
Has the FBI asked?
But the FBI, I'll get back to you if the FBI specifically
so Michael Wolff has
ever.
About 100 hours of testimony of Jeffrey Epstein. Wouldn't it be good for the FBI to interview Michael Wolff?
I'm not saying they haven't. I just don't know.
Has FBI subpoenaed the tapes that Michael Wolff has conducted of Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't know.
All right. So if you could provide us an answer, that would be terrific.
Sure.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Have you looked at all the photos in Epstein files?
I have looked at all the information that the investigators who investigated this case have provided to run out credible leads.
And in the Epstein files, was there that creepy birthday message that Donald Trump had written to Epstein?
No, that's what I was trying to tell you. You raise a great point. The estate of Jeffrey Epstein has a voluminous amount of information that they have not released before.
Okay, so that's great. So wouldn't it be great if FBI subpoenaed the estate of Jeffrey Epstein for all that information?
The estate is under no obligation to provide that material, even pursuant to a subpoena. That's a great point.
Yeah, that's just false.
Okay.
That's just false. You're the frickin' FBI. You can subpoena the information from the estate, and you better do that.
That's literally not how it works.
I'm going to move on now and talk about Epstein's client list. You confirmed that it exists. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirmed earlier this year that it exists. So I just want to ask you a simple question. Is Prince Andrew on Epstein's client list?
The material related to Prince Andrew has been made public.
Is Prince Andrew on the client list?
We have released the index of names that were in Jeffrey Epstein's.
Is Donald Trump on Epstein's client list?
The index has been released, and the index will speak for itself.
So I'm just going to say, America, there's a huge red flag. The FBI director could not answer whether Donald Trump was on Epstein's
Gentleman's
client
time has
list.
expired. I now recognizes the gentleman from Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the director for being here and for his work over the last several months.
For a man who supposedly kept records, videos, and photographs in a locked safe, the answers seemed strangely impossible to find. And as the questions kept coming, so did the evasions. Lou didn't ask for speculation or rumors, he asked for facts. But what he got was a masterclass in dodging accountability. It started simple enough. Is Prince Andrew on Epstein's client list? Silence. Has the FBI seen all the evidence? More silence. Every answer from the director sounded rehearsed, bureaucratic, and almost detached from reality. The index will speak for itself, he said, but that wasn't an answer, it was a wall. And behind that wall sat the most explosive evidence America has yet to see. That's when the story takes a darker turn. The FBI did search Epstein's Manhattan mansion back in 2019, after years of allegations and whispered cover-ups. What they found wasn't rumor or theory, it was a safe packed with disturbing photographs. Investigators confirmed it publicly. Polaroids. Dozens of them. Images of girls who appeared far too young, and some of them posed with powerful, recognizable men. The photos were reported in major outlets at the time, but the details, who those men were, what those photos proved, were quickly buried beneath ongoing investigation statements. Author Michael Wolff later revealed something chilling in an interview. He said Epstein once walked into his safe, pulled out a stack of Polaroids, like playing cards, and laid them across the table. Wolff described seeing high-profile figures in those photos, laughing, posing, surrounded by girls of uncertain age. It wasn't gossip, it was first-hand testimony, an author saying he'd seen the evidence himself. Yet when Lou asked whether the FBI had investigated those photos, the director said he didn't know. Didn't know. That's not an oversight. That's either incompetence or deliberate evasion, and here's where the contradictions pile up. The FBI says it's reviewed all credible leads related to Epstein for more than 20 years, but if that were true, how did the public only recently learn about the birthday message, a disturbing note Epstein received that hadn't surfaced until his estate released it? How did journalists uncover material the FBI supposedly already examined? If investigators really had everything, why does every new release feel like a bombshell no one inside the Bureau ever mentioned? Lou caught on quickly, his frustration was visible. Have you subpoenaed the Epstein estate for all the remaining files? He asked. Have you questioned Michael Wolff? Again, no clear answer. The director claimed he wasn't sure that he'd get back to Congress later. It's one thing to say information is classified, it's another to say you don't know whether your own agency followed the most basic steps in the nation's most high-profile trafficking case. By this point, the hearing felt less like oversight and more like theater. The director's polished tone couldn't hide what was happening, a wall of deflection. Every time Lou pressed for truth, the answer drifted into vague technicalities. And every time that happened, the public's confidence in the system eroded just a little more. Because when someone with that much power can't give straight answers, it leaves only one question: what are they hiding? That's where the phrase client list becomes almost mythic. For years it's been whispered like some forbidden document that could blow open every secret tie Epstein ever had. Lawyers, journalists, even victims have referred to it. Pam Bondi, a state attorney general, once said publicly that the list exists and that she'd seen it. But when Lou cited her statement and asked again whether it existed, the director shifted gears. The index has been released, he said. The index will speak for itself. But here's the catch. An index is not a list. It's a summary, a collection of names stripped of context. It doesn't tell you who did what, when, or how they were involved. For the average American, it's meaningless. The FBI can claim transparency, but what they've released only deepens the fog. People don't want vague indexes. They want the truth: who participated, who facilitated, and who looked the other way. Publicly available court documents and unsealed filings have included familiar names, royals, billionaires, politicians. But the official stance remains that there is no verified client list and no evidence of a blackmail network. It's an extraordinary contradiction. On one hand, survivors and witnesses describe an organized operation with records of powerful men. On the other, the government insists there's no list, no network, and no proof beyond what's already public. You can't have both. Either the files were incomplete, or someone decided certain evidence was too explosive to see daylight. Meanwhile, the back and forth between Bondi's earlier statements and the Bureau's denials leaves ordinary people wondering who to trust. Bondi said it was real. The FBI says it isn't. The media reports on photos, messages, and videos that seem to prove otherwise. Somewhere between those narratives lies the truth, and it's wrapped in layers of privilege and power that most people will never penetrate. This is bigger than one man or one hearing. What played out in that committee room was a microcosm of a system where accountability depends on who you are. If a regular citizen possessed explicit material tied to potential trafficking, they'd be in handcuffs before the day ended. But when the evidence involves elites, the response becomes "we'll get back to you." That double standard is exactly why public trust keeps crumbling. The same institutions meant to defend justice now look like they're defending reputation. Lou's persistence cut through that fog. His questions weren't sensational, they were surgical. Did the FBI talk to the witnesses? Did they subpoena the estate? Did they confirm what Wolf saw? Those aren't tabloid prompts. They're the foundations of a real investigation, and yet each one was met with hesitation or bureaucratic doublespeak. That's not how truth-seeking looks. That's how damage control sounds. What's so striking is that the FBI director eventually admitted something subtle but powerful. The Epstein estate still holds a voluminous amount of information that has never been released. In other words, there's more. There are materials still hidden, still controlled by people outside law enforcement oversight. When you combine that with the evasive tone in the hearing, it paints a clear picture. Crucial evidence is still locked away, and no one's forcing it into the light. This is where the larger issue emerges. When justice depends on voluntary cooperation instead of mandatory transparency, the public loses faith. The idea that an estate is under no obligation to share evidence with the FBI sounds absurd, but it's exactly what we heard. If that's true, what's the point of federal power? If subpoenas can't compel cooperation in a case of global trafficking, then laws protect the powerful more than they protect the innocent. The entire exchange left the room uneasy. Even as Lou's time expired, his expression said everything: frustration, disbelief, and determination. The hearing wasn't just about Jeffrey Epstein, it was about whether America's justice system still has the courage to investigate itself. Because if the FBI can't give a straight answer about something this serious, how can the public trust any of its investigations? It's easy to see why so many people are skeptical. Each year, small fragments of new information emerge: unsealed names, unexplained messages, old photos resurfacing, but never the full picture. Survivors continue to wait for closure while politicians argue semantics. Journalists chase leads, but the trail always ends at no comment. And in that silence, the truth gets buried a little deeper. What happened in that hearing room should serve as a warning. Evasion breeds speculation. The less the public is told, the more people fill the gaps with theories, and those theories spread faster than facts ever could. Transparency is the only antidote, but transparency requires courage, and that's something in short supply when the truth threatens the powerful. So what does this moment tell us? It tells us that some questions are still too dangerous to answer publicly. That even decades after Epstein's crimes, the web he built still casts a shadow over politics, finance, and media. It tells us that institutions we rely on for justice may hesitate when justice points upward instead of downward. And maybe that's why people keep watching hearings like this, hoping that just once, someone will break ranks and tell the whole story. Not the edited version, not the press release, but the truth as it is. Until then, we'll keep seeing the same dance: questions, denials, partial releases, and another promise to look into it. But this isn't a mystery that fades with time. It's one that grows more urgent as new names, documents, and testimonies emerge. Because if we don't demand accountability now, the cycle repeats, power hides behind process, and justice remains unfinished. So let this hearing stand as a reminder: the truth doesn't disappear just because the powerful refuse to speak it. It lingers, waiting for someone brave enough to confront it. And until that happens, the questions Ted Luz asked will echo, not just in Congress, but in every home that still believes no one should be above the law. If you believe transparency matters, if you think power should never be immune from accountability, then stay tuned. This story isn't over, and the next revelation might change everything we thought we knew. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and keep watching, because the truth has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it.